Good morning. Friday, February 6th. I had to get up early this morning, Michael. It was, it was
Is
quite.
that because of me? Am I the reason you're getting up early, or was there a different reason?
No, I mean I need to get my ass out of bed anyways. But yeah, it's because of you. Because it was at 8 a.m. So, but it's
So you can either thank me or berate me later, depending on how your day went, because you got up earlier than you probably wanted to.
I was cursing you a little 45 minutes ago, but now that I'm up, I'm kind of glad I'm moving. Otherwise, it could have been another couple hours just chilling out. I get very cozy sometimes.
Yeah, I would much rather sleep in. I'm not a morning person for sure.
Hmm. Cool. So what's new, man?
Um, what is new? Well, we got a somewhat comedy related. Finally, we'll have an open mic coming to the area every week starting later this month. So that'd be interesting. I got to try to create a new routine where I'm doing that every week as long as I'm available. Um, so yeah, looking forward to that. Pushing myself, trying to do comedy more regularly. So that kind of takes away any excuses of having to drive like 45 minutes, an hour away to do an open mic. If there's one right here, then harder to make excuses not to go.
Totally. The I guess yeah, routine and a schedule would help because you build momentum and you get your reps in. All that said, I took a break from pickleball for almost 4 months, and
Wow.
I played the best pickleball of my life this week just by being away from it. Like I was shocked at how clearly my mind was evaluating my play from before because I just showed up disciplined and focused, and I don't really feel like I did anything else but took a break. So it's been kind of interesting actually. So
So are you gonna like sign up for big tournaments and then just not play for like 3 months? So you're already
I mean maybe actually. I think there's well, I mean, I didn't think we were gonna go here, but it's interesting. Like pickleball has people with at all levels, right? Like it's seniors and kids and really competitive people. And unless you're in a tournament where you're matched with people the same ilk or same sort of skill level, you're going to have to either play up or play down. And I like to play up. Like one thing I learned, and I've shared with a few of the people that I play with, and it seemed like they were shocked at what a good idea it was, and it's nothing new. But I noticed that most people when they're playing pickleball, even in rec games, they will play to the weaker player on the other side, right? Like go for
oh
the against the weaker player. And if you're in a tournament and you're there to win, that makes sense, right? You go for the weaker opponent. But when you're just playing recreationally, I
yeah.
play to the better player because it's the only way I'm going to learn something new is for them to do, surprise me, right? And I was saying to a couple people that that was my strategy, and they looked at me like I was an alien, like it never occurred to them. And I was like, huh, how about that? Because they were fine pickleball players, but they hadn't advanced. They were always going for the win. And in a rec game where there's nothing more than just getting to gloat as you walk off the court, there's really no objective. So
Well,
yeah,
some people might want to boost their fragile ego. Like,
well,
I dominated. Like, yeah, sure, they were 7. It was their first time playing, but I crushed them.
well, Wendy reminds me of that all the time, actually, because I have been playing really good pickleball. I show up, I'm relaxed, um, and and then Wendy's like, "Oh yeah, but you're playing against people in their 60s and 70s," and I'm like, "Oh right, I forgot." like I was playing so good, and I was quite nimble, but I do have a little bit more mobility than some of those, so it's easy to get caught up in, man, I'm playing amazing, and then oh right,
And the whole like waiting, like being good at something and then waiting, giving yourself a break. It's interesting. Like, so, I follow poker, and there was like this really experienced poker player. What they used to do with the World Series of Poker for like a decade and a half, and then they changed it. They play in like July. They get down to the final table, and then they would stop until November. So you would have a whole tournament in a week. You get down from 11,000 people to 9, and then you pause for like 3.5 months. And they were interviewing some of the players before they, like the day that they came back to play. And one was like, you know what? I haven't touched poker since. And we're talking about millions of dollars are on the line. First prize that year was like $8 million. Ninth place was like $800,000. Massive difference. And one guy was like, I haven't played once since. And another guy, a less experienced player, I've been practicing every day. I hired all these coaches, all this. And it was funny because this guy had actually, the guy who didn't practice at all, he finished ninth last time. He had a lot of chips, finished ninth again. He didn't practice one day and like just went out ninth. And the guy who practiced did good. But I've seen that reverse happen too, especially with something like poker, right? Like you could not play, you could be a novice and win the whole thing in poker when you're not going to do that in like basketball or pickleball if you never played before, or you've just played recreationally. You're not going to beat like a seasoned pro.
Do you have to practice poker once you reach a certain skill level? Because isn't at that point it's more intuitive, like you've learned, because it's about playing yourself too, right? Like it's
a lot of it is, but also so there's like GTO, like game theory optimal, and like there's a lot of solvers now. So some people will memorize those, like computer algorithms to maximize the result. So what you should do in certain situations, because there's a lot of different situations based on what's been bet, how high the blinds are, who your opponent is, what position you are at the table, all those things, taking all those into account. So there will be people that continue to improve that way, like figuring out all the statistics and the little nuances.
mm. You got me thinking about the Olympics too. We were talking about the rap, or not the rap, the hip hop
Great
dancing.
dancer, yep.
Wasn't poker in the Olympics like 15, 20 years ago? I feel
I
like
don't think so. Not that I know of.
there was definitely a card game. Like I recall, they were not athletes; they were smoking, sitting at tables, playing a game, and they tried it in the Olympics once. I'm sure.
I'd be surprised if I missed that.
Yeah, but it may not have been poker, but it was definitely a card game. And
A card game
yeah,
in the Olympics. You got me Googling here.
yeah, I want to say it was in like late '90s, early 2000s.
Okay, so no, a card game has not been an official Olympic sport, but bridge is recognized by the IOC as a mind sport. So it might have been like some kind of prelims or something, but it
Yeah.
looks like it wasn't technically. But bridge was at the Asian Games in 2018 and like close to Olympics, but no.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe they were talking about adding it, and that was where they were trialing it. So it was
But it
bridge.
looks like it would have been bridge and not poker, which I've never played bridge.
Like bridge is with cards, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a card game.
Yeah. So
I know nothing about it other than it's a card game, but it's a card game.
yeah, like to me, that's not a traditional Olympic sport, right? Like unless those cards are very heavy, and you have to, you know.
Now that would be interesting, like poker, where you have to pick up and move the cards, and they're like made out of steel. And
Yeah, actually, my kids used to love playing giant chess sets, like the one where you have to walk around and place them. I haven't
they
done
got
that.
like sand. There's a bunch of sand in the bottom, so they
Yeah.
because they're usually outdoor. I played a couple of those before. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got onto bridge and poker and giant chess. Okay, circling back to so your weekly, like you've got an open mic this week.
Later this month,
There's
I think there's one of the short open mics, one of the 1 minute sets on the 21st. So if I'm going to do that, I need to get ready. That's in about 2 weeks.
Okay, and so that's a 1 minute set.
Yeah.
Wow. It's hard to still imagine going up and just doing a minute. Like it takes 25 seconds to walk up there, check
Oh,
the
well,
mic.
they don't start. They don't start the clock until you start talking. That's
No, I just mean
not like time.
it's like there's more drawn out in getting up there and leaving than the performance itself, right? So
And that's why the interview is a big part of it. Like having good interviewers, good questions, as a participant, thinking of things that you might talk about depending on what they ask about questions, just trying to make it entertaining outside of the minute too. Because like the show that it's based on, a lot of like them wanting you to come back is judged on your interview and not just the performance. Like, yeah, if you're just terrible, then they probably don't want to see you back necessarily. But if you give a really awesome interview, which there had, oh my gosh, dude, one. So,
No, sorry. Can you need to
yeah,
elaborate? This is an open mic, but they do an interview as well.
yeah,
Like
yeah. So it's
kind of
called
like
Make Us Laugh, but the show is based on Kill Tony, which is now it's hosted at Joe Rogan's Comedy Club. Joe Rogan's often a guest. It's a massive show. Like millions of people watch every single week. And they do 1 minute of stand-up comedy and then an interview. And the interview could be 10 to 15 minutes. And there was one guy during his set was okay, older guy. During his interview, it came out like he was on heavy drugs like heroin for like 15 years. And I think the guy asked, like, what's the most interesting thing about you or something? And he's like, well, yeah, back in the 70s or whatever, one of my buddies was Richie Ramirez. We all called him Richie. And he was I think Richard Ramirez was like wasn't he the Son of Sam killer?
oh, okay.
But like one of the most famous serial killers of all time, and this guy just drops it out of nowhere and tells like a story of all this, and everybody's just like blown away.
Was it a true story, or
Yes.
so he was? Oh, okay, but that was part of his interview then.
Yes. Because it's hard to just bring up something like that during a 1 minute comedy set.
Yeah. So is it? It's almost more like being on the Carson show, where you do a bit
Yeah.
and then meet the comedian afterwards, kind of thing.
Yeah, sometimes they give advice. A lot of times they don't. A lot of times they just make fun of them. But if it's really good, then you could get like a golden ticket where basically you can come back on the show without having to put your name in the bucket at any point because you did so well. They want to see you anytime you're available. So there's different things like that. It's pretty cool.
Well, that's interesting. So, got any concepts? Like you were talking about a concept last time that you were going to run with. I'm trying to think of what it was
I
actually.
still haven't built it out. The Better Than Sex mascara commercial
Right.
that I heard on the radio. So I still been thinking about that. Yeah, and all the other things I've been thinking of are like one-off, random, dark or risky jokes. And I'm not sure how much I want to get into that arena. So I'm trying to stay focused, but I always think of like really odd, somewhat controversial things. So I have to try to rein that back.
So when you do that, like and you're on your own thinking about this kind of material, do you sit and try to force that topic, or do you just kind of like give yourself freedom that that topic's not working, just let your mind wander?
It's a great question. I don't think I really have that figured out. Like, I do feel like I have demand avoidance, and like when I'm forced to think about something, when I'm trying to force myself to think on a specific topic and work on something specific, my mind just wants to go everywhere else. It doesn't want to do it. So it can be tough.
So what'd you call it? Demand avoidance?
Demand avoidance, which is like an actual thing. One of my sons has it, and I'm pretty sure I have it as well.
I wonder if that. So, like, I've definitely, and it keeps popping up in my YouTube feed. Like with ADHD, you don't even the one task that you need to do is not even that big of a task, and generally, it seems like the recommendation is do something even worse, so that that task is a no-brainer. So, be like, if you hate running, go run for 5 minutes, because once you're done that, awful thing, the other thing will be easy and. Makes sense in my head, but I actually don't even want to do that shitty thing either. So I don't do either.
And demand avoidance is a key trait of some people's ADHD. Not everyone with ADHD has it, but it's synonymous with ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah, and interesting.
But it's like even though you're supposed to do something, it's like everything in your mind and body's like, nope, not gonna do that. Not interested. And then you'll find ways to justify yourself out of it or convince yourself or other people that no, you really shouldn't be doing that. Like you're gonna do something else instead.
Mm-hmm.
I have trouble with that.
Like I do the same too. Like I will leave something till the very last minute. It's almost like the thrill of like, can I squeeze this 2 hour thing into 9 minutes, 8 minutes before I'm supposed to meet with the person.
Yep. And then I can be really efficient for those like 9 minutes.
Yeah.
But the 2 hours before that, not so much.
Yeah. It's like absolute forced focus. Like you just need that. Yeah. And still don't know what to do about that. I've definitely been playing with binaural audio. There's some real freaky sounds that you can throw on that I find that just my brain goes, but it comes with like an eerie, like this feels forced
Okay.
vibe, so that it doesn't feel authentic, but I can tell that the focus is there. So I'm still trying to figure out how to make that work. Because yeah, I'm pretty sure demand avoidance would be something that you could put it next to my profile. That sounds correct. So,
Possibly. And then there's the whole thing of like figuring out what is actually demand avoidance and what is you just tapping into what you do or don't want to do
mhm.
without that playing a part. Like it's tough. I don't think there's any clear answer there.
Do you journal or have you tried automatic writing?
I've journaled and free wrote in the past, but I haven't. I'm not right now. I should, but I'm not.
I've not heard the term free wrote. I wonder, is that the same as automatic writing, where you just kind of like let your pen go and
Oh, probably. I've never heard automatic writing, but free writing, I've done a lot of that where it's just you set a timer, 10 minutes, you write on a single topic, or you write everything you possibly can and you don't stop. So you're just literally writing, even if you're writing, I don't know what to write about, this is frustrating, you're writing that out too for like a specific amount of time.
yeah, because I tried that last week and I was
Okay.
shocked at like yeah, I just like I'm not a writer. I don't enjoy journaling, but someone suggested after a meditation just immediately like ask a question and start responding to it. And
Okay.
it was fascinating where my brain went. It was like I was a clinician solving some issue I had and I was like stepping through it. And I was like,
Okay.
I don't think that's what people meant by automatic writing. It was more like just write. But it was almost like my brain was so trained to like find the clue that I was like so I still don't think I've done automatic writing from the standpoint of just like creating something and just letting it channel out of me. I still seem to almost always be like how like so hyper analytical that I was like uh critiquing my automatic writing
Yep.
as I was automatic writing.
Yep.
So,
And trying to, and that's another part of it too. You shouldn't be like edit. Well, I say you shouldn't, but the goal is to not edit it in the moment and you just keep going. And that's, yeah, for people like you and me, that's really difficult.
mhm. Yeah, Wendy even suggested she's heard like people use your non-dominant hand. Like,
Oh my
what is
gosh.
your left? Like, I'm right-handed. What does my left hand have to say? Because it's the other hemisphere of the brain too, right? So I'm not
Yeah.
even sure I could draw correctly, but
We spoke about conditioning before. Did I ever tell you when I was in preschool, they forced me to write with my right hand because I did everything with my left hand. They trained me to do my right hand, and I have terrible handwriting. So
mm,
I was definitely meant to be left-handed. I naturally wanted to do it left-handed. They made me do it right-handed.
wow. So and you don't write left-handed now because you never
No,
really learned
but
how.
if I like try, there are things I do left-handed, like random things, like throw a frisbee only left-handed, or certain things like that. I'll only do left-handed or prefer the left hand. But writing, yeah, I write crappy with both hands now. Like I don't try with the left hand, but if I do, it's about the same as the right hand.
It's interesting. So you said forced, I think. Were you forced, or do you think you went along with it because you didn't want to make trouble? Like, do you remember?
Why as a preschooler, I don't know if there's any like went along with it. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like I was crying and screaming
Yeah.
and I want to write with my left hand, but I don't know. That's what and my mom has a clear memory of that. Um,
Hmm.
just them saying we're making him write with his right hand and not his left.
That's what the school said to your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that? I wonder. I mean, it's always funny where these things go. But is that because the teacher it was easier for them to observe everyone writing the same way? Or like,
I
why
don't
did
know.
that benefit you, right?
Or they thought everyone should be writing right-handed. I don't know, but it's so silly to, if somebody's naturally doing it with the other hand, why would you try to stop them?
Yeah. And do you remember instinctively or intuitively knowing that you wanted to write with your left? Like it was a real
No,
struggle?
I don't still have that memory. I just have what my mom said about that and my knowledge of like me doing other things left-handed and me writing terribly with my right-handed with my right hand. People can't really read my handwriting very well.
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, like in hockey, right-handed players generally play left-handed because they actually
Oh,
want the more dominant hand at the top of the stick.
okay.
So I didn't realize that, but I guess that's actually like encouraged. So you end up seeing a lot of left-handed players, but they're actually right-handed. Um,
And in baseball, the most value you can add is being a left-handed pitcher or a left-handed batter
mhm.
because you're forcing the other team to make adjustments and they're very important being left-handed in baseball.
Yeah, you made me think of Pat Verditi. Remember that guy? He was a
I
Blue
don't.
Jay for a while. He was the guy
Okay.
that pitched both sides and had that
Oh,
special glove with like two thumbs in it, so he could flip.
that's cool.
And they had to create the Pat Verbiti rule because the switch hitter went up, and they both kept switching. And so for it's like 3 minutes long, and eventually the ump is like, "That's it. The pitcher is pitching this way," and so the batter got to choose which way. So then the Pat Verbiti rule was the pitcher had to indicate which way he was going to pitch, and then which somehow doesn't seem fair. Like if the batter can switch, why can't the pitcher then? Right?
Right. Yep.
Um, I
That
mean,
would be a great little skit, like just seeing the back and forth. Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
funny. I'll have to look that up. I did not know that happened.
There's a bunch of strange things. I mean, baseball has lots of
Oh yeah.
famous occurrences, but it seems like a lot of Blue Jays ones. Like there was a game where they won like 25-12, and I think 18 runs were in one inning, and that was like 3 years ago.
Jeez.
Like it was just a ridiculous affair. And then this season, there was a ball game rained out. So the catcher for the Blue Jays um, played half a game as a Blue Jay, but then got traded to Boston.
I
So
heard that. They played for both teams in the same game. I saw that headline. I was like, wait, what?
yeah, and he even caught his own pitches. Like he would have been next in the order or something. So he ended up being the catcher for what would have been his hitting assignment. So
That is amazing.
like the funny thing is like baseball's so traditional. Like they won't budge on rules. Some rules really probably need to be modified to
Yeah.
be modern.
And
But
the NFL changes rules so often that like you can't understand them. Like 1 year something will be legal and the next year's not. They change the definition of what a catch is. And so there's been several really controversial plays that have screwed my Lions where it's like it's clear to everybody that he caught the ball, secured it and everything, and they're like, oh well, by rule it's not a catch. So even though he caught it, he hit the ground, he stood up, he tossed the ball, oh, that's not a catch. It was ridiculous, and they lost the game because of that.
well, I didn't know that was occurring. Yeah, I think if you've got the ball in your possession and it's in your control, that's a
Yep.
catch, right? Yeah.
Right. And they had some terminology about like throughout the process of the catch. So then they were trying to determine, well, what's the process? Is it just catching it and having caught it? Or is it the motion of standing up? And it was ridiculous.
Mhm.
They overthought it.
This isn't an interesting story, I don't think, but it came to mind as you were talking. So I was at a softball game, and the someone caught the ball and dropped it, and the ump. What happened? They said the ball was dropped on transfer, but
Okay.
there was no transfer because there was no one to throw to. Like it was just a pop fly, and there was no one on base.
Were they
And
transferring it to their other hand?
yeah, so everyone, like even the ump after was like, "Oh right, oh well." So it wasn't like it was a big game or anything, but we were all just like, "What just happened?"
Have you ever heard of Armando Galarraga?
No.
So I was watching the game. I'm a big Tigers fan too. He was obviously, you know what a from playing softball, you know what a perfect game is,
That's no hits.
and no walks. It's
Oh, okay.
no errors, no hits, no walks. So not just a no hitters, just no hits. There could be 5 walks, there could be runs, there could be errors. Perfect game. There's only I don't know how many there's been in baseball history, like under 30. Uh, and there was a Tiger pitcher, not a great pitcher or anything. Armando Galarraga, he was 1 out away. It was a ground ball. They threw it to first. He catches it. The team starts celebrating, and the ump just goes safe. And everybody like starts dropping their gloves and like yelling at him. The manager comes out, gets thrown out, and like they show the replay, and it was so clear that it was out. Like he finished the perfect game, and next guy gets a hit. And this guy, he's out of the league like the next year. And there's been Tiger fans still that are trying to get it like instated. Like they should acknowledge it was a perfect game. It's clear. Like even the umpire the next day during interview was like crying and like, yeah, I messed up. And
Oh,
just
okay. So he owned his mistake at least.
eventually
Okay.
he didn't at first, but then he had to because it was clear evidence. Like, you know, they zoom in and he got it like a full second before the guy touched the bag. Like it's not even that close.
And was it not in pro ball where they do replays, or was it before
Oh,
replays?
they don't they it was before they had challenges. You couldn't challenge it.
Wow. That's too bad, eh? And so the guy disappeared, like he
Yep.
wasn't. Wow. Where if he had had that perfect game, he would have gotten a big contract, probably, right? Like,
Probably, and at least being in history, like had his. I mean, he's still in history, just not for the best reason. Like, hey, remember that guy that almost had a perfect game?
a guy that got ripped off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So, what are you doing this weekend?
What am I doing? Last weekend, I went to Michigan for my dad's 70th, so that was interesting. Uh, this weekend, I don't think I'm doing anything. Got the youngest has soccer, just started up soccer. The oldest is in band, and so just a lot of that stuff. But I don't think anything this weekend. How about you?
School started, I guess. Yeah, I've got a pretty quiet weekend. Wendy's away; she's in Las Vegas. She gets back Monday, and then I disappear for 2 weeks. So
Ooh,
just be basically high five each other at the airport. So yeah, no, it should be a nice quiet weekend. I think. Kind of need to rest up, but
crap. Vegas for like a conference or just hanging out or
no, she decided to go there with her sister because I don't think her sister's ever been, and she never like I did. Basically, my rule is I don't go to Vegas for more than 4 days, if at all. Right? Like,
thank you. I was literally that was gonna be like there is such a short window of when it's good and when it's valuable, and then like get me out of here. Like it'd be like 3.5 days is what I was gonna say. Longer than that, it's like, golly, I just can't take it.
well, like I've been there 14 times probably, but I went what 6 weeks ago for the first time in probably 8 years, maybe
Oh
10,
wow.
and it's crap. Like it's basically you walk into these hotels and it's just full of smoke and like forced air. Wendy said like she's staying in Paris, like a big hotel.
Yep.
They don't even have coffee in the rooms. So it was $18 for two regular coffees. Like you are held hostage there
Of
now.
course. That's a
And
good business decision. I mean, you want people to get out of their rooms. You don't want them to stay in the rooms longer. Then they're not spending money. You get them out of the rooms. Then they're in the casino. They're buying coffee. You don't want them in the room. You don't. You want to take away those little conveniences that allow people to comfortably stay where they're comfortable in the room. No, get them out of there.
but it is to the point where it's absurd now. Like it's she's there. It's 40 degrees. You
40
just,
degrees.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, Celsius. We.
Celsius.
I'm
So
like, geez, that's freezing. She needs to bring a winter coat, and you're like, man, it's hot, 40 degrees.
oh, it's around like 110, right?
Yeah,
So
right. I'm like, man, bring
so
a coat.
they're uncomfortable. Everything costs a fortune. It's still just
Oh yeah.
crappy food, right? And or super
Yeah.
food. And then when I was there, like we got married there, and
Oh,
in
okay.
1995, you used to get these big buckets and you put pennies in them and you would just play
Okay.
these penny slots. And then, and the trick was you tip the waitress as well because the drinks were free.
Okay.
So, you gave $2 tip and she was back with your screwdriver 5 minutes later, right? It was very economical and fun. And then your hands were all black because they were covered in all the
Oh
grime from the
gosh.
pennies. But you were actually like doing something. You put it in the
Right.
machine, you pulled the handle.
Yeah.
Now there's none of that left. Like
When it
literally,
was fun, I bet it was fun back then. It's not fun now.
yeah,
Just
it's like tap your credit card.
right.
There's not even a button. It's just give us your money. We're gonna make these lights spin, and you're gonna
Yeah.
find out that you lost your money. like it, there's not a lot of charm left at this point. It really has been homogenized down to we're just taking your money and laughing at you while we do it. But
That's the American way, Sean. Woo!
yeah, it'd be interesting to see like at what point do people, they just stop going because it's just. I mean, it didn't seem
They're
nearly.
too good at feeding addictions for it just to go away that easily.
Yeah. Hmm. um, where to go from here? I haven't actually thought much about material lately. I've been in like digging mode lately, so I'm got a couple more weeks of that. But um,
I can tell you where my thought process went this morning, and I'll explain it so it doesn't seem as offensive. I was possibly. So we have a Shih Tzu, my dog, and when we got it, I wanted to name it Megatron because that was the nickname of my favorite football player at the time, and I thought it'd be a really cool name for a tiny dog. And so I don't know why we ended up going with Chewie because he kind of looks like Chewbacca.
Mm.
That was also my idea. But for some reason this morning, my thought process was Megatron and then Transformers. Megatron is a transformer. And so then I was thinking Transformers, and I feel like the LGBTQ community missed a marketing opportunity. Like Transformers are seen as cool and badass. Why couldn't you make that link,
Well, and you're morphing too, right? So yeah.
You're becoming your superhero self. I thought there was something cool to that. I don't know where to go with that, and I'm probably not the right person to tell whatever joke comes out of that thought process. But I was just like, man, that would be cool. Like,
Well, I mean, at least the bad guys are the Decepticons. Who the good guys were the Megatron.
uh,
Megatron was a bad guy. Optimus Prime.
yes,
He was Autobot.
the Autobots. Yep.
I mean, they were pretty fashionable. So Bumblebee, like that
Bumblebee.
that
Yeah,
dude knew how to command attention. So
Bumblebee, a little flamboyant. Went with the bright colors.
yeah, yeah, shows
Yeah.
up in a sports car. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, see, I don't know where to go with that, and I'm probably not gonna go anywhere with that. But that's just where my mind went to the different Megatron, Transformers.
Yeah.
Thinking about the word transformer.
Were you into Transformers as a kid? Like that was
A little bit. We didn't have cable, so we just had the standard channels. So I had like the PBS, like the off-brand cartoons. I didn't have the good stuff, man. I didn't have He-Man or Nickelodeon or Transformers. We had the Sesame Street and the Garfield offshoot cartoons, stuff like that.
And you're younger than me. You probably don't remember G-Force, right?
I've heard of G-Force. Well,
Yeah.
the G-Force I'm thinking of is like they came out with a G-Force that was like guinea pigs
Mm-hmm.
as
Which
superheroes.
I don't make the link based on my childhood.
I don't know, but what G-Force are you referring to?
Well, it was a cartoon, and it was like
Okay.
3 or 4. They were sort of like teenagers.
Oh.
One liked to drive fast cars. One liked to fly planes.
They're
And then,
almost looks like off-brand Transformers.
mhm.
There's like a dude that turned into a plane.
Well, kind of like he'd be inside it driving it as a human, but he'd be driving this giant plane that I think turned into a robot as well. So
So
it
it's
was before.
Guardians of Space.
Yeah.
G-Force, Guardians of Space.
Yeah, and that was a big deal when I was like 6 or 7. And then I definitely owned some Transformers. Remember, there was one called Metroplex, and Metroplex was a Transformer that was a city, which when you think about it,
Okay.
is so ridiculous, right? He was a truck that when he opened up turned into a city. And I bought this thing, and I'm pretty sure I paid $25 in 1986.
It's probably worth like $1,000 now if you would have kept it in the box. If you were being
Well, you know what happened too is I owned it a week, and my mom sold it at a garage sale. She hadn't seen it before, thought I had stopped playing with this thing, and I
oh,
literally just bought
dude.
it. And she sold it for like 25 cents.
Of
And I paid
course.
for it with my own money.
Oh gosh.
And I still remember that. I was just like, what are you doing? So,
That's
yeah.
dramatic. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of thrifting and looking at vintage stuff. I recently got a lot of like all these old cartoon VHS tapes.
Mm.
So like even the original like Bill Cosby Fat Alberts, there are a couple of those. There were like Inspector Gadget and He-Man in the universe or whatever it's called. There are a bunch of those. So and people still pay money for those. So
And so you're doing a lot of rewinding these days?
I'm not actually. I don't even have a VHS, so I'm just like buying real cheap and finding people that want them and selling them.
Oh, you're just moving them. You're not actually
Yeah,
like putting them on a shelf. Okay.
I'm flipping VHS tapes. I'm high tech here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's something to do. Yeah, I just couldn't imagine. Like, I think our VCR has been gone 7 or 8 years now, and there's been one time where it's like, I wish I had a VCR right now, but not enough to get on my knees and pull out the RCA cables. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, no. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I'll go find it. So,
Right, and there's something too. Like nostalgia always sells, so it's people wanting the full tapes
mhm.
and have them displayed on the shelves, and something about the weight and being able to feel it, and people still like it. I actually 2 days ago at the thrift store, I found
I saw
Sony
that.
Walkman cassette player, $2, and I was like, no way this is gonna play, and it plays good. So I've been listening to it. I went to the coffee shop this morning, was listening to the cassette player, and a guy like stopped me, was like, no way. He saw a couple of the cassettes, and he's like, dude, that's so awesome.
So, did it come with the original headphones? Were they always yellow?
No, I want the original headphones. They didn't. It was just this. And this is a later model, like so it has auto reverse. So once one side finishes, it goes to the next
Ooh,
side, which is crazy.
fancy.
But yeah, they sell online for like $55 now because everybody threw them away a long time ago. But yeah, I got it for $2.
I had the yellow one, which I think was definitely sort of very commonly known. Like it had the little clippy
But
top.
those go for like 200 now, Sean.
Wow.
Yes, those are more valuable than these. The original yellow one, people go crazy for those.
Dude, I definitely had one of those. And I used to make mixtapes for my girlfriends.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think I even made a mixtape for Wendy. Nowadays, it's just like, here's a Spotify playlist.
Right. I'll send the link. I'll Snapchat you the link. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But things go in cycles. It's like fashion. Some of that will come back, and I mean, just like vinyl did, and I hope A-Track never comes back. I think that one's gone for good. But cassettes are coming back. I do cassettes, and the value has gone crazy the last 6 months to a year for certain genres. For certain genres.
I kind of get the vinyl thing because it's grooves in a record, and so it does sonically sound different. I definitely like the 8 track and cassettes. I just don't get it. And then with CD, like if you've got a high quality MP3, it's going to be at a what's the word, uh, codec level that's going to, your ears aren't going to be able to tell. It's just you're just not going to know, right?
I think a lot of the value in cassette, maybe not value, but the appeal of cassette collectors now is like how easily and nicely they display. They're such small, compact. I mean, it's even easier and better to display than like CDs with a thin. You can barely read the back label. Where cassettes, you can have a whole wall of them, and I've seen people with whole wall displays. They just display really well, so I think that's why they have some value.
Sure. Yeah, it's art, I think.
Yeah.
back when people cared about covers and stuff, like, yeah, I guess when you release a song now on Spotify, you're creating a thumbnail, basically, right?
And
So
some people on like, do you know what Bandcamp is, where people sell like their music and stuff?
somewhat familiar, yeah.
There a lot are doing cassettes now too. Like people are collecting them, and uh, yeah, there's a lot of that now, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, my son and Wendy have collected a lot of records,
Okay.
and not cheap. When they're spending like 70, $80 sometimes on like a fancy double album.
If it's real, yeah, if it's a really fancy, desirable one. And for cassettes right now, it's pretty much like if you find some at a thrift store or something. It's heavy metal and hip hop are like the two big genres that you can pretty much not go wrong if you get them super cheap.
You just made me think of so when Wendy and I moved to Bermuda in 1998, and so
Okay.
we had bought a house a couple years before, so we owned the house. We were going to rent it out, and we were going to move to Bermuda. So we had to get rid of all of our stuff.
Oh,
So we didn't we were fairly newlywed, like 3 years. We didn't have a lot of furniture yet, but we ended up renting a storage container, and it wasn't even a big one. Let's call it 8 by 8 by 8, and I want to say it was $200 a month, and we put our stuff in there from 1998 until 2003 when we returned. And in that time frame, when we came back, we kept nothing. We gutted this thing. There was an old kitchen table that we thought we liked. 5 years later, we didn't like it. I put a broom in there. Like I stored a broom in storage, and then it was boxes of tapes that I knew I was getting rid of, and it was in 2003, so I think MP3s were starting to have an impact. So even the CDs, all of a sudden I was like, what am I going to do with all these? I don't want to rip them.
yeah.
And so in a 5 year span, we put all our stuff away, and it was a useless time capsule. Like, I kid you not, I don't think there was anything in there that we really valued, and we paid storage for it for 5 years. And the other thing that happened is while I was in Bermuda during that time frame, I missed out on the whole Nickelback thing, which, if
Okay.
you're familiar, like Nickelback gets a lot of slack, especially in
They do.
Canada. It's not one of our proudest.
I feel like especially here, it's like a running joke in the States.
Yeah. So I actually missed that phase. So I came back home and I was like, I really didn't get it. Like other people were tired of them. I was like, who is this band and why are they so big? Like in Bermuda, the radio stations there just played soca, and so I just really was like on an island. And I came back and this band was massive, but the trajectory clearly was changing.
Okay.
And like you can miss a lot of things visiting another place.
Oh, I'm sure.
So yeah, 5 years is not that long, but it's enough that you could literally get rid of everything you owned and not miss any of it because it's been that out of sight, out of mind.
It's a good exercise. Just I've done that a couple times where I've sold pretty much everything I owned at a certain time and then accumulated later. By the way, Useless Time Capsule sounds like a cool punk band name. By the way, I could just think of some really cool like logos and album art of Useless Time Capsule, like just the really random, dumb, useless things you could put in a time capsule.
And you said that would be a punk band. Why did you go punk?
Something just offbeat, something a little out there. Why do you think a different type of music would
No, I just like I don't like. It's funny, but different genres are in or out. So I guess my question is punk back, or is the world ready
Oh,
for
I have
you?
no clue if it's back or not.
But yeah,
I'm not cool enough to know that, Sean.
well, we'll see. If Useless Time Capsule chops the charts next year, we'll know that we've had an impact. Someone heard this and started that band.
Yeah. Or it probably wouldn't even be punk. It would be some really weird, like alternative music, like something really niche.
It's got a real despair sound to it. It's probably gonna be emo.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, I don't know if you've heard of like Neutral Milk Hotel or some of those names of like kind of alternative bands.
Yeah, I always thought a good band name would be Pubic Fury. I always thought that would be that's a nice
Pubic Fury?
pubic.
Pubic Fury. Oh, now that's heavy. That's got to be heavy metal right there. I don't see how you can...
or like some sort of teenage angst band. Yeah.
And you have like screaming stray hairs going in different directions, like for the logo.
Yeah. One of my first bands here I was in was called Bovine Love Jelly. And basically, because at the time we made tapes. I don't even think we were cutting CDs. So that was 92, 93. And yeah, Bovine Love Jelly. And so our logo was, it looked like just like a thing of Vaseline, but with a cow on it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I had in high school, I had a rapper name. I came up with a rapper name. I would make beats for hip hop artists in the area. My rapper name was Petty Cash because I was
That's awesome.
with just one T, just one T. So it's PETYCASH. That was my rapper name, Petty Cash.
PETI or yeah, Petri Cash.
No, PETY. So
PETY.
Yeah, just one, but one T instead of two. So.
Did you produce any songs? Is there something to hear? Or
I put beats out. 20 something years ago. I made one joke rap song in my basement one night when I was in high school that I think can still be found somewhere. It's terrible. It was meant to be a joke, but it's still terrible. I could send it to you at some point. I'm pretty sure I could still find it. It's bad.
I talked about this on a podcast with my friend. I think it was with Dr. Eleanor actually, and it basically is a childhood trauma, but it's so ridiculous that like so. My mom and dad really wanted me to succeed playing the drums, and so they were pushing me. And I at the time it wasn't right for me to be pushed with it. Looking back, but it wasn't what it was. And part of it was that my aunt Irene had said to my mom once, he'll never stick with it. And so
they wanted to prove her wrong.
Yeah, so my mom wanted to prove her wrong, right? And so that's the story there. But so at one point, a friend of my dad's had heard that Ted Nugent was looking for a new drummer. Now, dude, I would have been 12 or 13. And for whatever reason, I still recall working all day putting together a demo tape to send to Ted Nugent. And I remember sending it and then waiting for weeks.
Oh, man.
And looking back, that is ridiculous. You don't want a child on stage with Ted Nugent, right? Like,
no.
Wrong.
Not at all.
But the fact that at the time, I was like, I have a real shot at this, so.
That's how we all think, though. That's not anything bad. I mean, we've all,
Yeah, but when you don't hear back, and then you're like, so then it just created this whole thing. It was terrible. But yeah, I just thought it would be very interesting to be on stage, be a kid, playing drums for Ted Nugent. Meanwhile, he's just doing his Ted Nugent thing.
Yeah. Comes out in like a leopard printed thong or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, funny.
Should we call it there?
I think it was good to catch up.
Good.
Yeah, let's do this again next week, man.
All right, sounds good. I'm up for that. You're not leaving yet, right? I know you said in a couple weeks you're gone.
I leave Tuesday. I'll be online all around.
Okay.
Around.